Am I the a-hole for not giving my parents money for their new grandchild? Hi, 27 female. I'm a married woman and pregnant with 2 girls. When I was younger, my mom and dad always compared me to my sister, their golden child. I never had a birthday party or even got a gift. And if I did, I would have given it to my sister. Pretty much if I wanted a present, I would have to get money for it myself. As soon as I got a job, my parents said I had to start paying rent and getting food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if I wanted to eat. So I had to work for everything I wanted. At the age of 18, my parents kicked me out and I went to live with my boyfriend to whom I am now married to, and we now have a 5-year-old and twins on the way. So, my parents were never there when my oldest was born or when I got married, but they were there when my sister got married and had her baby. She also still lives with my parents and her husband, and neither of them have jobs to support themselves. One day, my mom and dad invited me, my husband, and our oldest to their house for Thanksgiving. My parents started the conversation off by saying how beautiful their grandchild was and how much prettier my sister was compared to me. My mom said, "Since your pregnancy, you've been starting to look old. Look at your sister. She still looks like she's 14. My husband got visibly uncomfortable with the comment she made. We were just about to leave when my dad asked me if I could give him some money or they would end up homeless. I asked him, "How do you not have any money for the house? You earned a lot when you were a doctor." He said that my sister used it for expensive stuffs for herself and the baby. I replied angrily, "Why should I even give you a cent when you never cared to waste at least one on me?" The whole room went silent, and full of rage, me and my husband left the house and went back home. Most of my family members decided to call me and yelled at me for not helping them, even though they never cared about me. My sister later on called me too, to tell me that I was being a spoiled brat, that I couldn't even help them a little, and that I don't need all the money I have. I just hung up and blocked everyone who was bashing me online. So, am I the a-hole? Extra info. Dad is retired, mom is a teacher, and like I said, sister and brother-in-law don't work. Also, dad has 1 kidney so can't go back to work. Sorry, should have asked if, am I the a-hole for not giving my parents money even though they will end up homeless? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your parents are real a-holes. I'm sorry for you. You need to cut these people out of your life for good. They are not family. Sounds like the sister didn't fall far from the tree. Surprised you even went over there for Thanksgiving. Not the a-hole. I really don't know what was going through my mind then. Hope for having a supportive, loving family always catches us the first time. You've built yourself a beautiful, loving family with your husband and your children. Remember that whenever you need to deal with them. Next time you hear from your parents or sister, let them know you are happy to catch up with them. When they come with their hands open, tell them your time, energy, and money is tied up furthering your children's future. Not the a-hole at all. Family is, though. Your parents indulged your sister and her now spouse, taught her nothing, and relied on you for way too much growing up. I'm sorry to say, but sometimes we need to cut ties with people in our lives that simply don't bring us any good. Your parents and sister are completely clueless to their issues and the situations they have put themselves in. And unless they can acknowledge the past and fix the present, you are just going to constantly be put in these situations which will take a toll on your mental health and well-being. Sometimes it is simply better to cut the ties that bind us from such toxic people. If they're about to lose the house, there are 2 able-bodied persons living with them that can work and pay rent, and then some. Not your problem and not your issues. Best of luck and hope you have beautiful, healthy babies. Next story. Am I the a-hole for giving my stepkids Disney tickets away? 2 months ago, I told my oldest stepdaughter, 18, that I needed her to request this weekend off because we were celebrating our Christmas and the boys' birthdays. I even texted their mother and made arrangements for my youngest stepdaughter, 14, and she acted like she was on board with it. We have this ongoing issue with my stepkids about them only coming over when we were doing something fun. Every time I try to get them and just spend time with them at the house, they make up every excuse in the book why they cannot come. I purposely did not tell them or my kids what the plans were this weekend. The oldest couldn't get off of work, so I told her, "It's cool, we will do something for her later on. No big deal. I understand how it is working retail during the holidays." Today, I texted their mother to confirm if the youngest was coming over tomorrow, and she said she had a long week and was really emotional and did not want to go to our house without her older sister. Total BS. She doesn't even like her sister like that. and she's been to our house plenty of times without her sister. Just another excuse on why she cannot come. Mind you, it's my hubby's court-ordered weekend with her anyways. We don't make her come over, so we just get her whenever she wants to come over. So, I texted their mom back and said, no big deal, we will do something else with them another time. Then, the oldest stepdaughter texted me a little while ago asking what we're doing, and told her we are spending the weekend at Disney and another event. I told her so she wouldn't be surprised when photos are posted this weekend. Now, all of a sudden, she wants to call out of work, and my other stepdaughter wants to come without her sister now. Lol. I told them, I'm sorry. I gave the boys' friends those tickets because y'all didn't want to come over. I really did. So now they're angry, and a part of me doesn't feel bad for the youngest. The oldest is understandable because she actually has a good excuse, but I do not want her calling off work because she's on the verge of getting fired already for her attendance. Hubby wants to cave in and let her come, but I don't want to because I'm over her only wanting to see us when we're spending money on her. I want this to be a lesson to the youngest, and he doesn't see it that way. I gave her an opportunity to come, and she didn't want to. So, tough luck. Am I the a-hole? Edited Duet. Before anyone says I'm being unfair to my step-kids, I treat my bio kids the same way. My oldest child has this fair share of missing out on events. He knows better now. Lol. So when I say get in the car and let's go, don't question it. Just get in. It's not a game I'm playing. Over the years, I just got tired of feeling used. The only time they want to come over is when we're doing something, or they want something. That's why I stopped telling them what we were doing. My husband is cheap and doesn't care for fun things, so I plan and pay for just about everything we do that's fun. We all have a good relationship, and they are growing older and they rather be with friends, so we are trying to give them the space to do that. But before oldest stepdaughter got a job, we would try to plan things with them, my kids included. And it just became a, can we go here instead? And complaining about everything, so that's why now if I want to do something, I don't tell them plans. I just ask them if they are coming, and if they don't, then they stay home. All of the kids are in different age groups, so I try to plan things for each child and invite the others. But that's been extremely difficult because of the complaining. Not the a-hole. You ask them to make time to celebrate holidays and your son's birthdays as a family. That wasn't important to them until they found out how you'd be celebrating. I'm glad your sons get to celebrate their special days with people who actually value their company. So 18-year-old should just risk getting fired because OP wants her to take extra time off without properly explaining? It is not mentioned how close the 18-year-old is with step-siblings. Holidays in itself can be done at another day. I mean, he knows better now and gets in the car when I tell him to. No questions asked. How on God's green earth is that any way to treat anyone? Never mind an 18-year-old with a job. Learn how to read. 18 said no, so OP said that it was okay with her. She's already on the verge of getting fired. She should focus on her job instead. Not the a-hole. Simple thing is, the stepchildren don't want to spend time with their family unless they directly profit off of it. They had their chance to spend time with OP and family, who made it clear they all wanted to spend time with the two stepdaughters. They didn't want to, which makes it fair to pass that opportunity on to someone else that actually wants to spend time with them. In this case, son's friends. You can't reject the cake and eat it too. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my neighbors to be more considerate? My neighbors are a young couple in their 30s, Annie and Bill. They've had a baby a couple months ago, and the baby just came home last month after 3 months at hospital. My wife is friendly with Annie. We can't have children, so whenever we have a neighbor with a baby, my wife makes friends with them. We have my mom also staying with us as she's no longer able to live independently. My mom has complained several times that she can hear the baby crying, especially at night. My wife says the baby has bad reflux, and they're trying to deal with it. The baby screams several times a day, and it's awful listening to the poor thing crying for so long. It does feel like they aren't dealing with the baby as quickly as they should be. The baby screamed for 10 minutes solid the other night. My wife says that the baby screams when they bathe it, as Annie has told her that the baby doesn't like being bathed. Baby is always crying and it's frustrating, especially when my mom needs peace and quiet to recover from surgery. Since the baby has come home, there is no longer any room in our street during the day as we have an on-street parking. This is making it difficult to get mom to appointments, as she can't walk to the end of the street to get her in the car. But we also can't park in the middle of the road, as it blocks the road and can take over 10 minutes to get her in the car due to mobility issues. There had always been at least one empty bay outside our house, but now it is always occupied by either someone from their families visiting or one of the healthcare professionals involved in the baby's care. I reached a breaking point this weekend. Mom had been home alone all day and she was in tears when I got home from work, while wife was away visiting friends. She said the baby had been screaming all day long. It was still crying when I came home. I went and knocked on Bill and Annie's door to ask if they could quieten the baby. I could see through the frosted glass that Annie was sat on the bottom of the stairs, not even trying to calm the baby down. When she came to the door, she apologized and said she had been trying to calm the baby down, but the new medication was making him constipated and he was straining to poo. She had Bill gone to pick up an emergency prescription to try and help. I snapped, as she clearly hadn't been trying as she was on the stairs, and told her that they need to be more considerate of others, and if she didn't quieten the baby, then I would log a noise complaint with the police. Annie was upset at this and closed the door in my face. When my wife came back, she told her what I had said. Now my wife is angry with me, as I was making life difficult for a young couple with a sick baby and is giving me the silent treatment. I feel like I may be in the wrong because of how my wife has reacted, but at the same time, the baby is always crying, and I think they need to be more considerate of their neighbors. Now for the top comments. I'm going to get hate for this, but thank God you can't have kids. Your lack of empathy and inability to sympathize are outrageous. Real babies aren't like dogs or dolls. I would hate to see how you would have treated your wife or your own child. No hate here. A few times my husband came home to both me and baby crying. OP, you're the a-hole. From the other side, I came home more than once to my wife and baby both crying. Can't imagine what it would be like to be the stay-at-home for the first couple of years. You're the a-hole. On street parking means it's game for anyone, even if it's an inconvenience to others. Filing a noise complaint because of a crying baby is ridiculous. I actually hope you do, and you come back here and tell us how big of a laughingstock you are for doing so. Expecting someone to be able to magically stop a baby from crying that has health issues is also unreasonable. That's not how babies work. Just because the baby was crying when you went over to make your ridiculous demand and wasn't being held, doesn't mean the parents aren't actively trying to soothe their child, and instead are taking a moment to catch their breath, as reasonable parents and people oftentimes do when things get stressful. Agreed. And like, if the parents could quiet and soothe their baby, does he think they wouldn't? If it's hard to listen to a crying baby through walls, imagine how much harder is it for the parents who have the added stress of worry and helplessness. OP, you're the a-hole on so many levels. Last story. Am I the a-hole for scolding my sister in front of everyone while she's going through a divorce? Myself, 29 female, and my husband, 36 male, went to visit both our parents. They live 8 hours away from us by flight, and it was expensive. But we do it because holiday means a lot, and also to see my niece Rue, 5 female. She's my world, and I love her to death. For this vacation, her mom, my sister Mila, 29 female, was missing for most of our family gatherings and was spending time with her boyfriend and doing part-time job. We have a good relationship, but was really worried that Rue doesn't get time with her mom, and angry that she just leaves her with all of us. She leaves in the morning and comes home late. Apparently, this has been going on for months. For brief context, she is separated from brother-in-law, and she wants a divorce while he wants to try. But she came home because they were not compatible, and it's messy. So, since she is a single mother, I send her allowances for her and Rue, and also for other housing expenses directly to her so she can give our parents rent and focus on Rue and have a smooth divorce. I send her a total of 10 grand and my fun money account, which she has access to and uses. She sees a therapist and I get charged for this as well. Additionally, my husband pays for divorce lawyers. We both work hard and are not rich, but we are good enough. I know it's not easy what she is going through, and have never questioned her when there are withdrawals. But this holiday, I was so mad at how she is and who she is turning into. According to Mom, Rue is missing her mom and has withdrawn so much. She has not been giving them rent, and not helping around the house and doesn't even take care of Rue. Mom works, and Dad looks after Rue until Mom comes. They are also old, and cannot really actively interact with her. My mom was upset at me for not helping Mila out financially, as they are also struggling with 4 mouths to feed. I have never been angry as I was then. I observed her for a week, and the second week I confronted her privately. She said being a single mom is hard, and she's distressing. I called BS and told her what she has been doing with the money, but I'm glad she's working part-time. But what is she doing with Rue when she's comfortable? And even more angry that none of the money I give is going towards Rue or helping with her. She stormed out of the room and said I am ruining the holidays and being judgmental when she's going through so much. I told her how dare she say that after I give her everything, even when I don't have money left to buy new clothes for Christmas because I thought it was worth it. And if she doesn't stop and focus on Rue, then the money stops. I was so mad I forgot everyone could hear us. All our parents heard it. I felt so awful for exposing all this, but I was so mad. She called me an a-hole, and so did my brothers, saying I should have picked a different time. Now that I'm calm, I feel like an a-hole for exposing her like that. Vacation has been awkward since. Not the a-hole, but OP, stop the money now and give it to your parents instead. You gave the money to her in good faith that she would use it for her daughter, but she hasn't. You didn't ruin the holidays. She did with her greed. Not the a-hole, and for the comments of the parents, I wouldn't even give the parents money. I trust them to handle it, but I have the feeling that Mila will somehow talk them an ear off to get the money. Make something like a trust fund for Rue. She asked for the money, and I agreed until she gets back on her feet. The others we paid because she is my sister after all. But I'm so scared she might spiral if we took the money away from her, even more than she is now. The codependency is strong in this one. Therapy you need. In all seriousness, you are not responsible for her misbehavior. And in fact, you may be simply prolonging the inevitable. She needs to fall on her butt sooner rather than later, so she can pick herself up and fix the mess that is her life. It is not your job, nor responsibility, despite how much you love and care for her. She's taking advantage of everyone's good nature and their empathy to her situation that she got herself into. There's never a good time to address matters like this. You forced an opportunity, and that's absolutely okay. It's not just about her, it's also about you. You have given her too much already to continue being a heel. Congratulations for standing up to her and calling her out. Update. Neighbor 40 female keeps showing up unannounced to my 24 male house. I recently moved into a new house in a small gated community over the summer. This is the first time I've lived in a house since I was little. When I moved in, I received a lot of welcome gifts from neighbors since it's a very tight-knit community. This is how I met most of my neighbors, including Dana and her husband. Dana is my next-door neighbor. The first time we met, Dana came to my front door with her husband and 3 sons to introduce themselves. They brought me homemade cookies as a welcome gift. Her sons were really into dirt bikes and saw mine in the garage while I was moving in. I told them they could come over and check them out anytime they wanted. I was just being nice. Dana never really said anything or gave off any red flags. The next week, I was at work and got a motion notification from one of my cameras. It was video of Dana by herself looking into a window on the side of my house. I thought maybe she was checking to see if I was home and didn't think much of it. Later that day, I got a text from her asking when I'd be home since her sons wanted to come over and check out my bikes. I replied that I'd be working late, and she responded that she'd let her sons know. Nothing else happened for a few weeks. The second event was on a Saturday night. She knocked on my front door and asked if I'd like to come over for dinner. I didn't really have much going on, so I said sure. I went over to her house, expecting her family to be there. Nope, it was just her. She said her family was visiting a relative. I didn't want to be rude, so I ended up staying. Dana is a big talker, so I barely got a word in that night. It felt strange, but it was just a conversation. A few days later, I saw her husband, Chris, while checking the mail. He asked me if I enjoyed Dana's cooking. I responded that it was great and that I wished he could have been there. So I guess he knew about us having dinner and was fine with it. The third event happened a few days ago. My camera caught Dana walking in my backyard by herself, looking into the shed. I confronted her on the phone and said she was just looking for a shovel. I informed her that my tools were in the garage and made sure to let her know I could see everything on my cameras. She apologized for not asking me before coming over. Later that day, she sent me a picture of my boat in a driveway, asking if I could take her out on it. I left her on red. The latest event happened last night. I had my somewhat new girlfriend over at the house. We were grilling in the backyard, having a good time, when all of a sudden, Dana showed up with her boys and literally self-invited her family to dinner. It was extremely awkward for everyone. I tried telling them that I didn't have enough for everyone, but Dana claimed her family wasn't that hungry. Dana didn't leave until my girlfriend left. I'm extremely confused if Dana is into me or just has no social awareness. The only thing keeping me from straight up confronting her is that we are neighbors and have to live next to each other. Her husband has been nice and doesn't give off any strange vibes. What do I tell her to leave me alone? Do I need to wait for her to do something again? Please help. Now for the top advice before reading the update. She's a taker. She just pushes and pushes, trying to get as much attention and crap as possible. Tell her to buzz off. Well, she's the HOA president, unfortunately. This woman thinks she owns your house. I hate neighbors like this. Opie said she's the HOA president. He's so screwed. Oh no. I was leaning heavy for her being into him, and that may still be the case. But there is undoubtedly some power tripping at play knowing she's the HOA president. Considering HOAs can sometimes get things escalated to the point of evicting people from their own homes, I'd be the wariest person in the neighborhood if I were Opie. Get blinds for your windows and keep them shut. Motion sensor lights. No trespassing signs. Get a security system. Just call the cops. Going into your property looking for a shovel is just testing the waters. Give her an inch and she'll take a mile and your life will be misery. Better she hates you than steals from you. I have blinds on the house. In the video, it looks like she was trying to find a window that was open. When I first was moving in, I left my garage open and went to lunch. A box of my clothes labeled clothes was missing. At the time, I thought maybe I lost it in the moving process, but now I think she had something to do with it. Oh, holy smokes. Nightmare scenario. I asked 2 different neighbors about her and they both said Dana was an awesome neighbor to have. Now for the update 2 weeks later. I wasn't expecting the original post to blow up the way it did. I'd like to thank everyone for their advice. Turns out the people who said she was into me were right. Dana texted me last Thursday letting me know that her family was going out of town for the weekend. She said she would be lonely and wanted to know if I'd keep her company. She said something like she was grateful to have such a young and strong man in her life, referring to me. I'm 90% sure that means she's into me. I politely declined by telling her that I would be with my girlfriend. Friday night, I was chilling with my girlfriend at home, and Dana knocked on the door. I'm so thankful for my girlfriend because she let Dana have it. We didn't hear anything from Dana the entire weekend. I guess Dana is now mad because she issued an HOA violation for my trash cans being in the wrong place. She was taking pictures of my girlfriend's car parked on the street for whatever reason. Yesterday, I had a conversation with one of my neighbors who let me know that Dana and her husband are apparently in an open relationship because her husband is bi. Anyways, not really my problem and I'll just deal with them as my neighbors. Ever since my girlfriend had that talk with her, Dana hasn't been on my property. Thanks again for the help. I'd go to the HOA and threaten them with a sexual harassment suit if she keeps it up with the fines and pictures. Yes, but make sure you frame it to the HOA as they are enabling her harassment, they are a vehicle for her harassment, they are making you feel attacked and harassed for not sleeping with her. You plan to hold them liable for it. Don't let them tell you it's between you and her. Tell them that if they continue, you'll be sending them a certified letter with the same information so that you have it on record that you notified them of their role in harassing you. You might have to lawyer up because she will make your life miserable. Save those texts. Have someone testimony your side. Make sure your cameras also record audio and make a diary of things she is overreacting as an HOA. Things will escalate at some point, and you might have to order a protective distance from her and another appointed HOA to supervise her house. Remember to check those HOA rules, item by item. Neighbor sounds like a creep. She sounds like a total psycho. If she's already retaliating against Opie by reporting his trash cans to the HOA and taking pictures of his girlfriend's car, then I wonder how she's going to escalate things. Her being the president of their HOA really complicates things. Do what you can to protect yourself. Never be alone with her. She could make up false accusation against you. She definitely sounds like the type to do this too. Completely unhinged, also desperate AF. Next story. My 40 female and my husband 41 male, together 6 years. He snooped on my phone and found something I did 16 years ago. Why is he mad? Backstory on my original post. For months, my husband has been suspicious that I'm cheating, even though I've never even messaged another man since before our first date. He snooped on my phone and found a message from 16 years ago. 10 years before we got together, where I was short on money and sent a mechanic some nudes in lieu of payment for supplying and fitting an alternator. He called me all sorts of names, and I got mad and told him I'd never trust him again and that I thought he was projecting. On to the update. Like many of you suggested, he was projecting. He's the one who's cheating. I left to stay with my sister for a few days after I wrote that post. While driving past the Premier Inn near her house, I saw his car outside. I waited by it for 3 hours and eventually he emerged with another woman. He said it was the first time that he thought we'd split up. She turned to him and said, "What are you talking about? Who is this?" referring to me. He literally ran off like a coward. I spoke to the woman who turned out to be lovely. She said they'd been seeing each other for over a year, but he told me he was living with his religious parents after leaving his wife. That's why they could never go back to his house and always got hotels. She was such a kind young woman, and I ended up having to console her and even took her home myself. As for us, I'm back at home, and he is now staying at his parents' house. His parents were very disappointed in him when they heard the news and have been lovely to me. I've started divorce proceedings, but I imagine it'll take about a year to finalize. Take no prisoners, girl. Ask his lover to testify in your divorce proceedings on your behalf. We won't need to go to court, hopefully, if he just accepts the divorce. A person as controlling and manipulative as him is not going to just accept the divorce. He'll keep you dangling and hoping and use it to keep pulling you back in. Trust me, you don't want to have to depend on this guy's word about anything. It's completely up to you. But if you have decided you want to get divorced, then you should contact a lawyer. They give you a free consultation and greatly facilitate the process. If he's going to be cooperative about getting divorced like he says, then getting a lawyer will only make things smoother because you won't have to figure out which forms to fill out and file. Incredible that he told her he was staying with his parents, and now he is. Yep, it's like he willed it into happening. Lol. He manifested, and it happened. I was married to a serial cheater, and it may suck a bit now, but you are on your way to bigger and better things. That was very nice of you to console her. Please be sure to tend your own emotions as well. Gotta look out for number 1. To be honest, I was already 80% certain I was going to divorce him after the name calling and snooping, so this didn't devastate me as much as it would normally would. I really hope his mother and father know that he abandoned the girl he conned into a relationship at the motel, and that you were kind enough to take her home. What a man. I told him he abandoned a 23-year-old 30 miles from her home. Last story. My 37 female husband 39 male went to a work dinner with a woman and was gone 5 hours. Wasn't where he said he'd be and wouldn't respond to my calls and texts. I kicked him out and he says I'm overreacting. Can anyone help me make sense of what happened here? My husband of 6 years works in a field where sales reps are constantly vying to get him to use their products. One way they do this is by hosting dinners at upscale restaurants, think expensive steakhouses, and inviting groups to attend a presentation about their product in exchange for a free steak dinner. So far this year, my husband has attended upwards of 40 of these dinners. I find this a little excessive, especially considering we have a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old at home, and I rarely get a reciprocal night out. For context, we've been out together without the kids only 4 times in the past year. I've asked him to cut back on these dinners, but he refuses, saying he hopes to leverage these relationships into brand-sponsored speaking opportunities that could become a temporary source of secondary income. To his credit, this has happened before, and he made good money during his stint as a speaker. However, anytime I complain about the number of dinners he attends, he accuses me of not caring about our financial situation, or even outright trying to sabotage it. From my understanding, he attends far more of these dinners than most people in his field. Now on to the dinner in question. Last week, he forwarded me a screenshot of a text from a sales rep who said she would be in town for 2 nights and wanted to have dinner with just him while she was there. This is fairly unusual as most dinners are group affairs with friends and colleagues. On one other occasion, he met with a sales rep one-on-one, but it was an older man. This time, it was an attractive woman around our age. I looked her up on social media. They agreed to meet on Monday at 6:30 at a nice tapas restaurant in an expensive part of town because, according to my husband, it was close to her hotel. While this made sense, I raised an eyebrow at his phrasing. He got annoyed. But I pointed out that this was a dumb thing to say to your wife when you're meeting a woman for dinner at a nice restaurant. He left the house at 6:04. For context, I am extremely sleep deprived. I'm up with a new baby several times a night, and my husband has refused to participate in night feedings. By 9, I was exhausted and really wanted to sleep, but the baby was colicky and crying, and it was keeping my toddler awake. I texted my husband to ask when he thought he'd be home so I could have an idea how much longer I'd need to stay up. I said it was no big deal, just give me a ballpark estimate. He didn't respond. He wears an Apple Watch and is constantly responding to texts. So it was annoying that he couldn't give me an ETA after 3 hours at dinner. I called him at 9:15 and he sent me straight to voicemail. I called again at 9:30 with the same results. At this point, I texted him and said I was calling the restaurant. When I did, the host told me the restaurant was empty and confidently stated that no one matching my husband's description had been there that night. I texted him that I was calling his parents to see if they had heard from him. They hadn't. Finally, at almost 10, I texted him and told him not to come home. 15 minutes after my last text, he sent me an automated text from his GPS app saying he'd be home by 10:20. I texted him again and told him to go to his parents' house. He showed up anyway and I wouldn't let him in. He didn't have keys. He said I was acting crazy. He claimed the tapas restaurant was more like his sports bar, so they went to a nicer place across the street. He said his phone was in his pocket on silent, though he had to have declined calls to send me straight to voicemail. He said he was trying to generate revenue for our family. He told me my self-esteem wasn't his problem. He said my behavior had better be a symptom of PMDD. He accused me of creating events in my mind. Long story short, I didn't let him in. He slept at his parents' house and came by the next morning to get his stuff. He's staying with them again tonight, after attending yet another dinner, and likely will be for the foreseeable future. I think his behavior was shady and disrespectful to me, but he thinks I've blown the whole thing out of proportion. I'm so tired that I can't make sense of it. I need to ask, am I justified in my anger, or is he right that I'm blowing this out of proportion? Thanks in advance. Now for the top comments. He said a lot of things, but he didn't seem to say, I'm sorry. That's because he's not sorry. Yep, my ex was hunting women on TikTok and LinkedIn. I got justification about his needs, then was mocked about being upset about it, instead of an apology. When they aren't sorry, they don't apologize. It's that simple. He's showing you who he is. We just have to come to terms with that reality versus the one we want. The best case scenario here is your husband just doesn't give a damn about you or your family. That's best case scenario. Worst is what's more likely that he's cheating. I'm a doctor and have been to these dinners. Your husband is the big fish here, not the rep. They're trying to impress him, not the other way around. There's absolutely no reason he can't step away and take your calls or end it early. And most importantly, no reason he can't say no to dinners in favor of being a father and husband. Also, on what planet does this 35-year-old rep hold the keys to him becoming a lucrative speaker? All of it is BS. Tell him if he's so concerned about financials, he should consider the cost of a divorce, alimony, and child support. Am I the a-hole for being honest with my cousin? I have 2 cousins from my Aunt Jane. Kira is 14 and Allison is 11. Kira's always been ostracized in the family and never knew why. The truth is, Aunt Jean slept with her sisters, my Aunt Lulu's husband John, and Kira is the result. The only person truly suffering because of this is Kira. Jean still shows up to all family gatherings. John is still married to Lulu. Lulu don't speak to Jean, but the rest of the family does. But the one person who gets nothing out of the family is Kira. Of 13 cousins, I am the only one cousin who speaks to her. Some of those cousins are Kira's half-siblings, and they know about her. Allison also speaks to her, but they're close. Kira has been left alone and left out of stuff for as long as I can remember. I was told about Kira aged 5 when I asked why she didn't get anything for Christmas. My dad said everyone did it out of respect for Lulu, who was deeply hurt by the affair. Even then, it made no sense to me, but to the rest of my family, that stuff is normal. My grandma's sister turned 93 weeks ago, and we were all at my grandparents' house to celebrate. Yet again, Kira was left out, so I hung out with her and Allison when Allison wasn't being pulled into stuff by Jean. Kira got real upset because some people straight out ignored her when she said hi, and it confused the hell out of her why everybody hated her so much. She said her mom would never tell her anything, and she wished she could know. So I told her. None of it was her fault, but that the adults are horrible, and the family should never have taken it out on her. That nothing that her parents did should have made her suffer. She was broken, but she told me she was glad she knew. She confronted Aunt Jean about it, which is when crap hit the fan. Everyone said I had no right to tell her, that it wasn't my place, and that at 17 I might be young, but I should know better. The worst part, and what makes me feel worse, is her anger made everyone say what a selfish brat she is, and how she should be more understanding of the pain Lulu and Lulu's kids feel. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole at all. You probably lifted a weight off her shoulders. Now she can live her life knowing her family's a bunch of idiots who are blaming her for her mom's mistakes. That family's toxic. I would get out ASAP. She's too young to go anywhere for the next 4 years. My ex-husband ran away from home at 14 years old because his family was toxic. And when authorities tried to send him back, he refused. He told them if they send him back, he'll just keep running away. So they put him into foster care, and his mom had to pay support. My point is, if she feels she can't handle it, there are options, if she's desperate and unhappy enough to take them. Not the a-hole, at all. Your entire family are the a-holes. A child should never have to be punished for their parents' mistakes. How can no one think of the pain they're causing her? They care more about Lulu's pain, and Lulu straight up hates Kira. I've heard her wish Kira dead before. She says the same about Jean, but Kira did nothing to anyone. It's not like she chose to be born, or chose who her parents are. Everyone sucks here. It really wasn't your place to tell her. But for the rest of the family to ignore an innocent child in favor of an adult, they're all a bunch of a-holes. I know. I just wanted to try and make things a little easier for her because I knew she was going to be let in the dark. Next story. Am I the a-hole for uninviting sister from wedding and insulting stepmother? For a background, I'm an affair child. My dad was married to Marie and had 3 children. Male 8, male 6, female 4 at the time. After Marie found out about the affair, she was devastated, but stuck by my dad because she loved him. After she found out I was on the way, it was salt in the wound for Marie. She tried to tell my dad it was either his unborn child, me, or her in their relationship. However, she backed down when my dad made it clear he would choose me. I spent time with both my parents, but my dad paid for my other 3 siblings to go to school near him and wanted me to attend too, so I mainly lived with him and Marie, my 3 half-siblings. My dad was often away, so Marie sometimes would be taking care of me if it was school time. I always knew Marie didn't like me, even from a young age. She would do things like tuck her kids into bed and leave me out, or take her kids out while I wasn't there, or buy her kids toys and not me. The 3 would always talk about it, and I'd always feel left out. My siblings also didn't like including me in games and stuff, and I believe it was Marie's influence because she'd often tell them I'm not their real sibling, and I think she used to talk bad about my mother to them. Basically, I was the one that shouldn't exist and was treated as such. My dad noticed. It was something him and Marie used to fight about, but my dad always made it up to me. Example, if they all went out without me for ice cream, he would take me for ice cream. If their mother bought them new toys and not me, he would buy me a new toy. My siblings always took this as favoritism, and it further divided us. When I was 17, my dad divorced Marie. My 3 siblings went no contact with our dad, and I didn't really speak to Marie much. Our dad ended up marrying my mother a few years after divorcing Marie. I reached out to my siblings a few years back. The two boys said they weren't interested, but Lauren and I have met for coffee a couple times and we get along really well. I've been planning my wedding for a while, and I decided to invite Lauren. And after a positive reaction, I decided as an olive branch to invite Marie and my two brothers. I received a nasty message from my brother asking how dare I invite them, knowing our dad and my mother would be there acting as if they'd rip their family apart. I told him obviously they wouldn't have to talk to them if they came, but I just thought it would be nice to at least give them an invite. He asked what makes me think my wedding is so important that they want an invite, so I just ignored him. Lauren found out about the argument and basically tried convincing me to uninvite my mother and my father, and chose them and the women that raised me, and that my mother and father were a-holes. Told her she can't be serious, and that Marie was a witch to me, and literally resented my existence. Things got heated. Lauren called me an a-hole, and I told her it takes one to know one, and that she can forget about the wedding entirely. Received another nasty paragraph from my brother, and my other brother removed me from Facebook. Am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole for trying to reach out, but I feel there is more to this story. All the parents here are the worst. Why did your boy dad and mom leave it to your stepmom to be the primary caregiver when they knew she resented you? Were they using stepmom as a free babysitter while boy mom and dad carried on their affair? Your dad went on business trips all the time to see your mom. Seems like dad only left stepmom for your mom when child rearing tasks were done. It's bizarre you didn't live with your boy mom, near your dad, so that you could attend a nice school and get regular time with dad. Bio dad and mom are responsible for your childhood trauma as stepmom. They didn't do the minimum to protect and raise you, and you're really letting them off the hook in all this. My dad paid for his other 3 children to go to British private school. He thought it was only fair I went to the same school. My mom lived 30 minutes away from my father's house, and my school was 20 minutes away from my father's house. There was no school bus, and 15 minutes over an hour with traffic is a lot for my mother to drive every day with school. So it was easier for me to just stay at my dad's house because Marie would be dropping the other 3 off anyway. I'm also not sure my dad knew to the extent at the time. He would get mad when she obviously left me out, but the minor but important things he probably didn't realize. They didn't carry on the affair. My dad genuinely had business trips to go on. He didn't see my mother apart from dropping me off sometimes for years. He admitted that he loved my mother, and that he left Marie because she isn't a nice person, in his words. My parents never caused me any trauma. My mother couldn't move closer because she was quite poor, and Marie wouldn't have wanted my dad to help her out. My mother's a really kind person, and so is my dad. Okay, but the responsible and natural thing would have been for your mom to move close to her school and be your primary caregiver. Your stepmom wasn't happy about raising you, but she did it. So I don't see how she could have stopped your dad from financially helping your mom if he really wanted to. Seems like he was doing whatever suited him best regardless of how it affected others. In your original post, you indicate that your dad did know about the problems and that he tried to make it up to you by buying you things. So I think you need to be honest with yourself about his role in your difficult childhood. I'm just saying you have one perspective on this, and if you're not interested in considering the other side, then you should probably just leave stepmom and half-siblings alone. Everyone had a rough go, and the one most to blame is your dad. You posted here for an objective perspective, and based on the info given, your dad is not a nice person. He is a terrible husband and father who ruined a lot of lives with his selfishness. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law I'm not her late sister and she needs to see a therapist? My 19 female sister-in-law's 27 little sister passed away 3 years ago. Though she said she already grieved her death, I think otherwise. She likes to compare anything I do to what her sister did. And sure, 1 or 2 things I'm sure we did alike, but she's taken as far as comparing almost everything I do. The subjects I took in high school, sports I've played, colors I like, the way I decorate my room, even snack/food I like, the way I eat. I've told her, as nicely as I can, if she could let up comparing me to her late sister all the time, because it sort of weirded me out. She did not. When she still continued to do it, I talked to my sister, her wife, and told her to ask her to stop. She didn't. Everyone calls me overdramatic and said I should let her continue as she clearly sees me as a little sister, and that is normal behavior. She's been a lot worse lately since my boyfriend has been over more. She'll make comments like, my parents would have never allowed my sister to have a boyfriend in her room or spend a night. Or, you're lucky your boyfriend isn't around me or I'd kick him out. Yesterday, I asked my mom if my boyfriend could stay for dinner, which usually means he'll spend the night too. And she said yeah. Sister-in-law overheard and got mad. She was making snarky comments the rest of breakfast. Opie and boyfriend spends way too much time together. And I'm surprised you guys allow her to have boys in her room. You don't know what they're up to in there. She then said she'd stay home instead of going out to keep an eye on my boyfriend and I because we'd be home alone. I didn't think much of it and went about my day. When my boyfriend did come over, we went to my room to hang out. Not even 10 minutes later, she started barging in trying to tell me to wash dishes, asking me random questions and trying to invite herself to hang with us. Eventually, I locked my door because I got annoyed, and crap hit the fan from there. When she tried to come in once again and realized it was locked, she started screaming and banging on the door, yelling at me to open it. When I did, she started yelling at me how her sister wouldn't even be allowed to lock her bedroom door, so I wasn't allowed to. That's when I had enough. I called her delusional and told her I'm not her late sister and she needed to see a therapist because she needs help. She told my parents what I said and they want me to apologize because it's just her big sister instincts kicking in. My sister also wants me to apologize because what I said was heartless. I refused, and they think I'm an insensitive a-hole for it. Now I feel like what I said was probably in the a-hole territory, and I might have been in the wrong. Am I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She does need to see a therapist. Not the a-hole. That's really messed up of her. And you're correct. She does need some therapy or counseling. It doesn't sound like anyone is giving her a neutral perspective here and just enabling her to project her late sister on you. Is there anyone in your corner, Opie? A relative or a trusted authority figure? This sounds like a lot to go through alone, and I feel like you could use some sensible backup because you're definitely not out of line here. I don't have anyone other than my boyfriend and friends. Do you have a close relationship with your parents? I used to, but with them always defending what she does, it's taken a toll in our relationship. I know it's not popular opinion, but everyone sucks here, and here's why. 1. Your sister is an a-hole for brushing you off about your annoyance and concern for a sister-in-law. She also sucks for not being a good partner. Your sister-in-law is clearly struggling, and she's blind to it. 2. Your parents suck because they don't have your back when you're clearly uncomfortable with what sister-in-law is doing. 3. You're a soft a-hole just because of how you said she needs help. In heat of the argument, when you tell someone they need therapy, to onlookers and a person on the receiving end, it sounds like an insult rather than concern. Edit. Is it common to get mixed answers? Like, a lot of comments are saying not the a-hole, but in private messages, I'm being told everyone sucks here / you're the a-hole. I'm confused. I'm also being told I was harsh and should apologize along with being told my reaction was fine and I don't owe an apology. I'm so confused. Do the private messages even count? Maybe they're trolls. I don't know. I keep commenting to people, but I realize not everyone is going to see my replies. I did move out and had to move back because my apartment complex burned down. I'm back on the road to moving out and hope to by December. I know I need to get away and I'm trying. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my adoptive sister that she's not entitled to anything our grandmother left behind? My sister, Lara, 27 female, was adopted by our parents at 12 years old. She really never bonded to our parents. Lara attended therapy, and my parents showered her with love and attention, but they never managed to have a close relationship. I, 24 male, was the only one with whom Lara was able to open up to. My grandmother, 87 female, was also very fond of Lara. However, she always rejected her affections, and on many occasions, she was rude to my grandmother. Lara went to college, fully paid for by my parents, at 18, and moved away from home. Her housing and transportation was paid for by our parents as well. When she graduated at 22, she cut off all contact with our family. We later found out that her adoptive family contacted her a little after she turned 18, and they kept in touch for the 4 years of college. Lara waited for my parents to finish paying for her university to move in with her biological parents. Obviously, my parents were devastated. With a lot of effort, they managed to get out of their sadness and life went back to being normal, and we haven't heard from Lara in 5 years. My grandmother recently passed away, and she left an inheritance and will. Somehow, Lara found out about my grandmother's death and appeared at the meeting where the will was to be read. The commotion was so great that the reading of the will was postponed. That happened last week. Lara left her contact information with my grandmother's attorney, Today was the reading of my grandma's will, and Lara was there, since she is still legally the daughter of my parents, and the lawyer did not want to read my grandmother's will without her. My grandma left Lara one of her rings of average value and an amount of approximately $10. Compared to what she left me or my cousins, it's nothing. Lara was furious. She threw a tantrum and said that surely my parents had manipulated my grandmother to make me leave nothing for her. At this point, my dad was crying. I got angry, and I told her that she had no right to anything that my grandmother left, because she was the one who cut off contact, not us. I also called her some not very pretty names. Lara called me an a-hole and left the place. Now my mother is mad at me because she thinks this was our chance to talk to Lara again and reestablish a relationship with her, and that I ruined that opportunity. Not the a-hole. Also, your parents are wrong. Lara wasn't there to reconnect. She was only there for the money. Opie's mom is absolutely blinded by her own desperation in order not to see the glaring sign Lara's holding that says, "I still don't care about any of you." It's absolutely crazy to me. Lara almost spent more time out of Opie's life than in it. From 12 to 18, they had regular contact, but the next to nothing from 18 to 22, and no contact for the last 5 years. Not the a-hole. Lara went off and cut contact for 5 years after your parents finished paying off her university fees. And now she's throwing a tantrum because she thinks she's entitled to your deceased grandmother's stuff? She's entitled and sounds like a giant a-hole. She did you a favor when she cut contact, and she should have stayed away. Your parents are still grieving. And Lara was a massive a-hole to show up when they were grieving the loss of your grandmother, and potentially try to take advantage of that emotional state. Also, $10 is about all I would have left her to just to stop her contesting the will. But if that wasn't an issue, I'd say that $10 is maybe $10 too much.